Welcome to Conversations with Connors. I'm your host, Adam Connors. Prior to my conversation with Brandon Steiner, I had the opportunity to hang around his office, which is, by the way, one of the coolest offices I've ever been to for a variety of reasons. For the record, I've been to hundreds. The office just has a great vibe, people are happy, and it's very apparent that his staff adores him. You see, Brandon is a true leader that has executive presence and purpose. He's hard-charging about making himself a better person and constantly reinventing himself. As you'll hear him say, it's not easy and it takes time. In regard to our conversation, I recommend that you pull up a chair, tune in, and get ready to listen to a man that is entertaining, informative, and fun. Today's podcast delivers high energy and high value content. This is an action-packed hour that entails everything from Brandon's challenging childhood, funny stories, worldly quotes, and life philosophies that have obviously served him well. Brandon is a man that doesn't mince words, takes great pride in being spiritually rich, and makes no bones about his interest in making money. He is a capitalist that is living the American dream. He shares with us a plethora of good quotes like, always remember who you are and where you're from and try not to change. Remember it's the person that you are that got you where you are. Dream big, sample small, and fail quick. And probably my favorite of his quotes was, do as much as you can for as many people as you can, as often as you can, and expect nothing else. During the conversation, he openly shares how he's all about serving and creating value for others. We get into the importance of a good mentor, the value of relationships, and how with power and authority comes responsibility as well as accountability. He discusses the people that he admires and what he's learned from them. We also get into his new book, Living Your Life on Purpose. According to Brandon, it's the roots underneath the trees, and you can't be stopped if you have a purpose. Brandon's made a great fortune of collecting memorabilia. However, outside of his family, it's the collection of people that he is most proud of. Enough of me talking. Listen for yourself. We are ready to rock and roll. I am fortunate enough to be sitting alongside Brandon Steiner, Steiner Sports. There are so many labels that I could probably throw at you, and I'd love to know if there's one in particular that you prefer, whether it's author, whether it's founder of Steiner Sports, whether it's father, whether it's, we can keep going. It's all
good. Yeah, I'm happy to have the conversation. Looking forward to it, Adam. And, I don't get crazy with the titles and everything. I always kind of laugh when, it seems like in the last bunch of years, a lot of more employees recently have come in and, can I get a title? I'm like, I don't know, what title do you want? Because I'm still going to look at you the same way whether you're a VP, director, associate, manager. You're only as good as the value that you bring into this company on a day-to-day basis. And that value is defined by what you can do for this company that this company can't do for itself. Then the more you could do that we can't do without you, the more valuable you are. So you want to throw a title in there. You think it makes you feel more valuable? Okay, if that makes you feel valuable, I can give you a little gold star too every now and then. You can put that on your lapel. But at the end, people are moved by people that bring value in every day to what they do in every relationship, whether it be work or a team you're coaching. What's the value you bring to your team? And I think a lot of people don't think along the lines of value. They think along times because they've been working somewhere for a long time or because they have a relationship with a boy or a girl for a long time that makes that relationship valuable. I think it's nice to have long-standing relationships, but valuable relationships really supersede that. And valuable relationships mean that you need to bring value. It's not the value you can get by being in this relationship. It's the value you can give. And I think that a lot of employees and managers or people that sometimes they lose their minds a little bit, not realizing that every day you need to bring some value in and try to increase your value. And that really makes you, I think, a rock star that doesn't necessarily need a title.
Oh, great answer. Tell me about the traits that are valuable to you.
Well, we were talking, Adam, earlier about, that people don't get it. And I was just thinking about that as you were saying. I was like, I think people get it. I just don't think they give it. I think people get it really good. It's all about the get. And I think it's all about the give. And that's me. Like, I think at this point, I've been blessed. I've had a lot. I've not had a lot. I've grown up with really little. and it's all kind of part of the soup. But, to me, the best is there's nothing better than giving it. And there's nothing better than sharing it and paying it forward. I think it's the best joy that one can have. I think it's been incredibly exciting, the process when you have nothing and you're just trying to become relevant, trying to figure out how way you can make the world a little better, or how you can find a business or something you're really in love with and kind of get it to stick. Like 30 years at Steiner is probably me. That's what says it. I'm a loyal guy. I'm a guy who sticks to it, but I'm not stupid. I don't get stuck on stupid. I mean, I've had some really stupid stuff happen over the 30 years that I wish I hadn't got so stuck on. But I'm glad I got stuck on Steiner sports, but I wasn't glad I got stuck on some of the different things we did here over the years that I, maybe stayed with too long. And that's why I say to people is like, don't get stuck on stupid. Just because you have an idea doesn't mean you have to stay with it for the rest of your life. And that could be a relationship, a friendship. A lot of these things are not meant to be for the long haul, and it's okay. And then some of them are meant to be for the long haul, and that's where the thinking part gets put in. And that's where, for me, that's me. I think I'm the same guy that I was, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I don't feel like I've changed that much. I've got a slightly nicer car, a little bigger house. I get a better hotel room, but generally speaking, I'm the same guy. I don't, I don't walk around here and tiptoe around. I get into it with people. I fight and every day to figure out what else I possibly give and get from my customer to get them to go, wow, love that company, Steiner. Man, I can't believe what they just did, or who I got to meet, or whatever. So that's kind of me. I like the wow factor. That's kind of how I visualize myself in a business sense. I think, my family is no question, my best success that I probably have had, growing up in a single parent in a really dysfunctional home, and to have somewhat of a functional home now that we all still get along. I still like my wife. A happily married guy, I like to say, and a very happy parent. I think my kids are just amazing. And I really like my kids. I like the direction they've taken for themselves. Geez, I would have done more for them if I knew they were going to be this independent and do so well on their own. I would have done more and spoiled them more when they were kids. But so proud of them. And I give my wife a lot more of the credit than me. But, both of us, we teamed up. I think we put out a good product with our 3 kids. And I think that's the best success that I probably have had.
Agreed. Wow. As you were talking, so many different questions were running through my brain. You touched on so many things. You know what? I wouldn't consider you, again, not that we know each other that well, but I would not have gotten the impression that you get stuck on something. You seem very progressive. The environment here is progressive. Just being in the studio with you, it's a more progressive studio, not to mention the fact that you are, that you're doing video, that you're doing these podcasts yourself. It's still new. So when you talk about being stuck, do you mind getting specific? Is there anything in particular?
Well, I mean, there's 2 parts to that answer. I think me being progressive, realize that, I was stupid. I woke up one day, I'm like, Brandon, you are becoming extinct quickly. You need to go and not talk about it. You need to learn about it and do it. So, I found some young kids that knew a lot more than I did. And as many kids as I've mentored and still mentor, and I do mentor a lot of people and try to help them, whether it be life coach or a business coach, whatever it is. I enjoy doing that. But I've had some kids step up and mentor me and coach me and show me a lot of things that I wasn't even on the boardwalk, let alone on the sand, let alone in the beach, let alone in the water. I'm not far off. I mean, and I've never been a great tech kind of guy anyway, but I've really forced the issue to learn how to get on camera more often. I've always been comfortable on camera, but not on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis. But that's the best way I can communicate with my customers. And I knew I needed a change. And then learning how to, getting on Instagram, Twitter, and all that sort of thing is now part of my DNA. It's part of what I do every day. My wife's like, what are you doing? I said, well, first of all, I'm sitting here watching this stupid program with you for an hour that is pretty much next to being dead. I'm watching this program because in 2 days, I'm not going to remember even watching it. So I'm on my social media while I'm watching this program, whether it be Scandal or Homeland, or some really good TV out there, I gotta admit. So I do like the stuff. I'm not punished by sitting there watching TV. I enjoy it, but I'm also realizing that it's a little bit of dead time, as I've realized with watching all the games I watch. I go to over 100 games a year. I'm watching hundreds of games. It's a lot of games. I've watched a lot and gone to a lot of sporting events. But I also realize that it's dummied me down. So I've tried to minimize that and multitask while I'm doing so. because I know pretty much what's going to happen in most games that I watch and go to at this point. I got a pretty good sense. I don't need the sound on. I mean, I've been to enough. Not in every sport, but in a few sports, I got a pretty good handle. So I think it's really important. I mean, I've gotten stuck on stupid, a bunch of times. I mean, with a talent evaluation, hiring people and then staying with them too long is one of the worst things that anybody running a company could do. And I'm guilty. If that was the case, I'd probably be in jail. I don't know about a life sentence, but I'd be away for quite a while. I think that sometimes you get stuck on a product idea that it's because you came up with it or because it just seemed like a no-brainer. But, there's a big difference between coming up with an idea and executing it. And you can't get stuck on it. You dream big. I would say dream big, sample small, and fail quick. I love those three things. I mean, I'm a big dreamer, but now I'm a sampler, much more of a sampler, and I'm also not afraid to fail quick. The worst thing is when you're in this relationship, whether it be with a product or an employee or a girlfriend or boyfriend, friend, is that, you dream big, you got this big aspirations, and then all of a sudden you're in this thing for 10 years, and you realize it was over 7 years ago. I mean, life's short, so, and it's okay to dream big and it's okay to fail. Failing is not the opposite of succeeding. It's a huge part of it. I can't tell you how some of my failures have led me to even greater success than ever imagined. And that's the thing that I've now learned, to take those failures and pick myself up, certainly, which is what anyone will tell you, but also dive right back into even a deeper part of the pool now that you know better.
Well said. How long have you had this giver's mentality? Did the light switch go off? Is it in your DNA? What? I
think it's a lot about the way my mom raised me. I mean, I was in Brooklyn, and Brooklyn is the fourth largest city. I want people to understand that Brooklyn is not just another town or city. It's a big place. We were in downtown where we went and shopped once a year. We get our welfare check, and we go down to a place called Maze. Next door to Maze was Woolworths. Woolworths, who's now out of business, was a really discount shopping place. But Maze was where you put the closeouts. You didn't go, I never knew there was a dressing room until I went to college. You bought stuff off of, it was a closeout, it was dumped on a table, and you were paying 10 cents on a dollar, and that's how we get up my wardrobe for the year. I never bought clothes after September to go back to school. Next time I bought clothes was next September. So anyway, we got our welfare check, and I was really looking forward to this because you go to Woolworths, and you would pop a balloon, and in that balloon was the price you would pay for the banana split. So it could be anywhere from a penny all the way up to $1. And of course, being a kid, I want to win. I'm thinking maybe I get a banana split for a penny. So we love going to Woolworths for the little cafeteria they had there. And then we go into Maze, and then we pick out some of the stuff that fits. So we go into Woolworths and get my banana split. Now we're getting out. We're going ready to go to Maze. And there was a homeless person sitting on the floor with a bucket in front of him collecting money. My mother took $1 out of her wallet and put it into the beggar's bucket. And I then, right behind her, went into that bucket and took the $1 out and put it in my pocket. My mother's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "We can't afford to give this person $1. And my mother stopped and looked at me and said, Why? Why do you think that? I said, "Because we need that money." I said, "Yeah, but can you not see that poor homeless person needs that $1 too?" I said, "Yeah, but that homeless person could go out and work. That homeless person could be more productive. Why should they just be able to sit there and beg?" And my mother said, "Listen, I'm going to tell you one lesson. I'm going to tell you this only one time only, is that when you give to give. There's another person up there on another day that will be the judge. Don't give to judge. Give to give. If you can, if that person is asking, let's assume that they need the help. It's not for us to judge whether they need the help or not." And it's a deep lesson to learn at 8 or 9 years old. It's a deep lesson to learn, but it's a true lesson because we all do it. Well, I would give to that charity. I'm not sure where the money's going. I was going to help that person, but, that person doesn't really need it. Or we all get so opinionated about giving. And the fact of the matter is, and this is a Harvey McKay thing that I really got going literally in my early 20s, which is do as much as you can for as many people as you can, as often as you can, and expect nothing back. And I think the real grown up, the real give to give is about giving. What would you do for someone, Adam, that you knew couldn't do anything back for you? And that's really the question I ask so many people. You want to talk to me about your character, what would you do for a person that you knew there was no way that person could do anything back for you? And a lot of people have an empty answer. So when you say people don't get it, I'm like, oh, they get it. They don't give it. They don't understand about how to give it and the value of giving it, especially when you give it with no unconditional. And what I would say, having been on the recipient of being the person who was given a lot as a kid from people that there's no way I could repay them. There's no way I could repay all the people that helped me as a kid in a single parent home on welfare who didn't have food to eat or clothes, the Boys and Girls Clubs and the JCHs in Bensonhurst, all the people that would help me just get through. There's no way I can help them back. I don't know who they are. So, but the joy that out of everything I've accomplished, and I've done some really cool things here on a business level, personally, but there's nothing better than the joy of the thank you note I get even, or just to know that I really helped somebody. So I'm going to do it as often as I can with as many people as I can. I'm not keeping score, and I haven't. It's hard when you're in your 20s to get this wrapped around. But now that I'm in my 50s and I've been doing it for like, 40 years, I've helped a lot of people, and I feel really good about it. And I don't remember half of them, and I don't care. Sometimes they pop up after 20 years. I get a note, which is unbelievable. And if you believe in that, if you have a spiritual connection to just doing as much good as you can, because you put out good, you'll get back good, then boy, you're on a path to something special. And it's not a bank account, and it's not the make of your car. It's none of that. You're going to be spiritually rich, and spiritually rich is a nice percentage of the whole deal. That's a place you'd like to be, have a lot of extra money in the reserve.
That's inspiring. That's powerful. I don't even know where to go with that. You mentioned Harvey Mackay. I am such a big Harvey Mackay fan. And when we were talking at the LinkedIn event a couple months ago, you mentioned you had a funny story about Harvey. I don't know if it was how you met him or if there was...
Harvey is a guy that, first it started off, and let's start with a little bit of a negative, because people always want to know, like, have you had any setbacks? Where have you failed? And, listen, life hasn't been all rosy, peachy. But when Hyatt was one of my dream jobs. And when in college, I got an accounting degree from Syracuse. I always wanted to go and work in the hotel business. And Hyatt was a dream job. After 3 years at Hyatt, a little less than 3, I had gotten 3 promotions. I got fired. I was devastated. My mother was always in my ear, guiding me. And I call her up. I'm devastated. I'm crying. That's how upset I am about getting fired. I couldn't get my arms wrapped around it. And my mother said, instead of sugarcoating it, she says, listen, really progressive, good companies don't fire really good people. You obviously have some flaws in your game, and you have some things you need to work out and understand how relationships work. And also you have a little problem with authority. You may have gotten on the wrong side, no matter how good a job you're doing. You have to understand the importance of relationships with your bosses and peers, and not getting on the wrong side with very, very important bosses is part of the deal when you go work. It's a valuable lesson. If I were you, you may want to take a little look at yourself and maybe work out some of those kinks. There was no sugarcoating like, poor you, woe's you, what does Hyatt know? No.
Is that why you're as direct as you are? Is that the apple not falling far from the tree?
No question. My mother was a very direct, and yeah, exactly. So I go and get every book I can go get. I'm like, I'm going to reprogram, and I'm going to go. And, I started with, Dale Carnegie and Norman Vincent Peale, and I picked them all up. And, one of the books I was able to pick up was Harvey Mackay. And I really got into his stuff.
Was this Dig Your Well, or was it Shark?
It was, he's written so many books. I forget what the first one was, but there was a lot of him. It was McCormick, what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. That's a lot of Dale Carnegie, and it was Harvey over in my 20s. I really got into about 4 or 5 years of realizing I've got to completely reprogram. As I was growing and going, I realized that even though things were starting to pop a little bit, I kept going. I didn't let it just sit back in a hole. I knew that this wasn't going to be an overnight fix. Listen, if you have a problem, it doesn't mean it needs to be overnight fix. You can work on something over time. So this way you pick up your head in 4 or 5 years, you fix that problem. I'm not going to fix a little bit of a chip I had on my shoulder for my entire childhood overnight. Hence, roll forward about 30 years, I get a call. And I get a call because somebody's buying my Yankee tickets. I'm in the first row by third base. And I finally ask John Langbine, who has a big ticket company in Arizona. I said, John, who the hell is buying my seats? He goes, you're not going to know him. I said, well, I just want to know. I would never go to the seat and ask, but who's buying them? He goes, this guy, Harvey Mackay. I'm like, you're kidding me. Harvey Mackay is buying my seats? I said, I got to meet him. I would never screw you, but you got to set me up to go to the seats and meet him. He goes, you don't have to go do that. I'm going to get him on the phone now. He gets Harvey on the phone now. Next day, what do I get? Box of every one of his books, autographed, the whole thing. So I sent Harvey a bunch of stuff for his grandkids and everything else. We got a little rapport going. And I want Harvey to come and speak to this company like there's no tomorrow. So I call Harvey up about 3 months later. I said, look, whatever we got to do, but I really like to get you to come speak here. He goes, Brandon, I get $75,000 to speak. So it doesn't happen, and I'm working it. I'm sending some stuff for the grandkids, this, that, and everything else. And one day Harvey calls. Maybe it's got to be maybe a year later. He says, I need a favor. I got this huge thing for the governor of Minnesota. I was supposed to do the silent auction. I need some products. I said, I got you, no problem. I sent him a list. I said, call me if you need anything else. He goes, you're Harvey McCain me? That's my line. Call me if you need anything else. I'm calling you for a favor. And you're telling me, here's this, but call me if you need anything else. So he calls me back 3 days later. He goes, listen, you told me to call you if you need anything else. I actually need a few more things. I love the list you sent, but I need these 4 or 5 things. I said, no problem. You got it. Send it to him. Another week later, he goes by. He goes, listen, I need these 2 more items. And I sent him a pretty healthy list. No problem. I said, there's 2 things. Harvey, you call me if you need anything else. My pleasure to help. Sure enough, so he has this event. He invited me to come out. I couldn't make it out to the event. And he calls me.
Had you met him? Sorry to cut you off. So you still
never
haven't even
met him.
This is all
on the phone,
wow.
Never met him. 3 months later, 4 months later, he goes, Brandon, I just got to tell you, you sent me all this stuff, expecting nothing back. I said, it's my pleasure. First of all, I've read all your books. I'm a big fan of yours. And I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to help you. If you need something else, please call me. You know, I know you're calling me to thank me, but you don't need to. I'm happy to help you. You need something else, you call me tomorrow. You got it. He goes, I cannot believe this attitude. He goes, you're unbelievable. You're Harvey McCain. Me like, this is unbelievable. I said, listen, I'm happy to help you. And I mean it. He goes, I'm coming to speak to your company. And that's where it all got started. So this dialogue, all of a sudden, Harvey comes and speaks, and he gives one of the great speeches. First time I meet him, it's unbelievable. I am in my heyday. I'm in the first row. And as he's coming to the end of his speech, he drops. I mean, completely drops and faints. Hits his head right by my feet, blood everywhere. I mean, I was so scared. And so he goes to the hospital, and he had some kind of he had been to China, and he had some kind of, something going on with his bloodstream. So thank God he ended up being okay. Went to the Mayo Clinic. So I'm tracking him, keeping an eye on him. So I call him like 2 months later. So Harvey, I just want you to know I've been tracking you. I'm just glad you're okay. But do you think you can come back and finish the speech? He's like, you're unbelievable. I said, I got to tell you, man, you scared the hell out of like over 125 employees at Steiner Sports. I mean, can you come back? And sure enough, he came back. He had the bandages on, and he comes back, gives an unbelievable speech, second speech. And we really did it on a trade and some stuff. So he really went lightweight on it all and did the right thing. And sure enough, about 2 years after that, he started a round table with only 25 people in it. And it was a really who's who round table. And I was a little hesitant to join it, but it was the best thing I ever did because I really learned how to put all these thoughts, and I was working on a second book, and they helped me with that. You Gotta Have Balls was the second book, and that's my relationship with Harvey. And then that was 4 years ago. We've been in like this round table, been at Harvey's homes, and have been at games with Harvey, and could call him up, in his cell, anywhere. I mean, I have that kind of relationship. Met Ken Blanchard through this, and a whole bunch of other really incredibly spiritual gurus that not only was it great to meet and understand their thinking, but when we do the round tables, we spend a whole day with these people. And so you really get to know them, and like a John Gray, took him to a game and got to meet John. And John came up to the office for a whole day. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Yeah. And you meet a guru like that, somebody who's had an effect on so many, like a Ken Blanchard or a John Gray, and they're just naming a couple. I mean, that's the stuff. Like, what a blessing, and it comes from, call me if you need anything. I'm happy to help you. And most people have a hard time playing that game. So that's kind of how it all comes together. I'm not a huge reader, but I do read through a lot of books. I say learners are earners, and I think readers are leaders. I do believe those two things, and I do try my best to watch a lot of YouTube and read through a lot of different things just to kind of constantly mix up and grow from what I know.
During this roundtable, were you noticing certain common themes amongst some of these wildly successful people?
There's no question. I mean, I've heard some of the best speakers in the country come and speak, along with the 25 to 30 of the roundtable members who are all in their own right. I think, if I were to sum it all up, it's like, stop selling and start serving and start solving. It's not about the value you take, as I said earlier, but the value you give. Most people are thinking about the value they're getting, not what they're giving. And you got to stop selling. And you got to start thinking along the lines of serving and solving. I think that everything I've learned is like, if you can help people solve a problem, or if you're looking to be a problem solver, it's hard not to become relevant. You know the people in your life that are helping you when you have a problem, you're not getting rid of them. They're on your speed dial. I think that was the one main common denominator, which was about, learn how, your approach, your intent is very important, and you need to make sure you're clear about what your intent is with as much as what you do as you can, so that people understand that why you're in it. And it's okay to be in it for the money. Sometimes I tell people, listen, my intent, I'm in it for the money. I came here to do some business. I need to make some money with you. And listen, I would do anything for you, but today I'm here. My intent is all about capitalization and making money. I'm trying to sell you something. And it's okay to be that way. That's part of it. But show your intent and make sure that you're not one-dimensional on your intent, because serving and solving will always lead to, great relationships and usually great sales if that's the case, or great service if that's what you're providing.
That's awesome. You talk about commitment, and you got to have balls. That's the theme. That's really that's a fair.
Yeah. I was a little confused when I wrote You Got to Have Balls. Listen, every time I've written a book, I go back and go, wow, that was a great message, but I think I've learned more from that. And I was very big on commitment as opposed to passion, especially when I'm talking to younger kids and people that are just younger in their careers. They're looking for this like passion potion. And I'm like, if you're looking for that, boy, I mean, you're going to be a long time. And everybody wins a lottery ticket every now and then. But I think everything starts with commitment. But now, this new book that I'm writing, Living Your Life on Purpose, which will come out in June. And I haven't talked that much about this, but I'll talk about it with you. And that is, I think commitment is critical, because commitment leads to passion, not passion to commitment. But I think everything starts with your purpose. Because purpose, when you have a purpose, and it doesn't have to be a huge purpose, not everything has to be monumental purpose. It's like, you want to lose weight, you need a purpose. You want to maybe into some new clothes you have. You want to look good for the prom. You want to look good for a wedding. That's a purpose. For me, like 3/4 of everything great that's ever happened to me has started with a purpose, because purpose is like the roots underneath the tree. And there's these seeds that you have to put down. And then from those seeds, God knows what happens. From purpose comes imagination, determination, creativity, diligence, thoughtfulness. There's nothing that can stop you when you have a purpose.
Yeah.
So I think so when I say commitment, it's purpose will lead you to an understanding and a whole bunch of those things I just mentioned. And that will lead you to commitment. And only then, all that mixed in the bowl, okay, now we get to passion.
Nice. Is it going to be written in the same form? You got to have balls with such a. I read it in, I think, like 2 days. It was such an easy read. It was such a fun read.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think
same
so.
style? Is it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's all about, and I think one of the things that I struggle with a lot of speakers and people that write books is like, let me hear about your shit. Let me hear about like what's going on with you. Are you going to be transparent about the ugliness or the not so good stuff in your life? Because that's what makes the books great, is when you can talk about both stuff. I could talk about sitting on a train and really depressed. My mother had passed away a week prior, and as selfishly say, I just wanted to get off the damn train. I just did not want to take the train to work every day. I needed to go figure out a way to buy a car, and that's how Steiner Collectibles started. Like, everything great that's happened came from, sometimes it's selfish needs, sometimes it's a monetization impulse. I'd like to get a car, I want to maybe get a box of candy bars, whatever it is. For me, everything starts with purpose. I think the purpose is critical. I think this book will be transparent. I'm not afraid to talk about the dark, the good, the bad, the ugly. What I've incorporated in is some really easy stories to grab that I've been able to mentor with players. Either players have mentored me, or I've mentored some pretty big name players and coaches, and talk about some of those stories that people would never, ever imagine had occurred. Stories that have nothing to do with the game, but stuff that happens outside the game. Because, when you're struggling, you're having an argument with someone, it's never about what you're struggling about. It's always something underneath of it. Nobody gets sick. It's not about what you got sick with. It's kind of what led you to get sick, or what led you to get hurt. You hurt your knee, but that's not really what happened. Something else was wrong, and it led you to your knee going wrong, getting all banged up. So, when you have an argument with your wife, it's never what you're arguing about is the problem. It's kind of what led up to that argument is what you got to go figure out. I call it the smoke behind the wall. So that's kind of what this book is about. It's a whole series of stories that says, hey, man, you're cool. You got problems. You got some diversions. You got some bumps in the road, and we're all feeling that. All of us, no matter how much wealth or success you may appear to have, or someone else may appear to have, we're all going through the same stuff. And this is kind of how you use it to your advantage.
So mentoring, you've mentioned that a couple of times. A lot of, I think a mentor is so valuable. And there's talk nowadays, there's kind of like the thing that they're talking about these days is group mentors. And I don't know, I'm on the fence on that, but I do believe a mentor is important. Did you have one? And I guess this is a couple-fold question. Well, first, did you have a mentor?
Yeah. I mean, of course. I mean, I had some great people that helped me along the way that were monumental. But you got to look for it. I mean, I think people are like, well, I don't know, how do you get one? But you got to look for it, and you got to ask. But and then sometimes you're blessed with some people that it could be an aunt, it could be just a neighbor, But it's amazing how many kids don't even think of that. I mean, people don't even think of like asking the neighbor. I have a full court basketball court in my house, indoor and outdoor. So I've played basketball with every one of my kids' friends. And I'm a pretty well-known guy in the neighborhood. I mean, it's not a secret of what I do. It's Steiner Sports. And these kids in high school, college, I'm playing with these kids for 6, 7, 8 years. None of them have pulled me aside, Brandon, can you explain some things to me? But now they're all calling me. They've all graduated. Now they're calling me when they need me. But at the end of the day, they're passing the ball to me. They've been on my teams. They've been in my house for hours. And instead of just hanging, saying, Mr. Steiner, they see I'm just hanging out watching the game. Why not come over and just talk to me? I say, you mind if I talk to you for a few minutes? And listen, these are all good kids. I'm just saying the general mindset is not to even look what's in front of you and take what's right there. Instead, you're going to go into some room and network with a bunch of people that you don't know and hope that you're going to get wisdom and advice and find somebody that's going to help you with a bunch of strangers. I mean, that's really shitty odds. That's really shitty odds. I mean, I've never found a lot of success in that. I just rather just get to know the people that I know already a little bit better and see who they know, which is now a thing called LinkedIn. But back then, I was already working that angle. Back when I was in my teens, I always worked not only the people that I knew, but trying to figure out who they knew and ask if they would introduce me to those people. And I kept track of it before there were databases and computers. I have my phone book still to this day in my offices that I kept when I was a kid. They were color-coded. So I know how I met these people with little notes. Now, I mean, I don't know what your excuse could be, right? I say it's not who you know, not what you know, but what you know about who. And there's so many people that know so many people, but they don't know anything about them. And it's sad because that's the best networking you can do.
Agreed. You made a comment. Oh, I forgot the exact wording, but it's the people that you don't know. And it was so true. And then I went digging after hearing you speak. I went digging because I write all the time, ideas, and I've got hundreds of pages.
You probably weren't expecting me at that length thing. Nobody saw me coming.
No, I didn't.
And that's why I love it. I love that kind of stuff. Like people, like I don't want to mention who this is, but I had a friend of mine who was like, well, I would never go on that board because there's nobody on that board that's on my level. That's the thinking that is going to send you in a bad direction. So I love going on random things. I don't look at myself above and beyond. Time is a constraint, but I love Pop. Like the guy who put that on, great guy, by the way. He never saw me coming. He didn't know what I was going to bring, what I was going to do. But I knew that the 25 or 40 people that were at that thing were going to be in for a treat. And they wouldn't expect normally a guy like me is going to go into a LinkedIn thing like that. But why wouldn't I? And I love that element of surprise and being who you really are, not who, this aura of this or your title, or be who you really are. And something, hey, why wouldn't I go to a LinkedIn get together with about 35 complete strangers that, again, I don't know what I was going to get out of that. I don't know. And I don't care. I know that I could bring value to a conversation that we had that night. And I love that. Jesse's here, one of the kids that's mentoring me these past 6, 7 months, who's a high school senior. And it's like, I want him, if there's anything he's going to learn from me, is like, don't ever forget the element of being who you are and the element of surprise and just doing really good things, even if you're not getting anything back from it.
Yeah, because you will. It will. Jesse, you're very fortunate.
We're sitting here now, so if I didn't go to that, we wouldn't have met. But, it's like, I'm not keeping score. I'm cool. But I love that most people are like, how's this guy even here? I'm like, it was an opportunity, and I figured it would be a fun thing to do.
Yeah, and you were great.
And I learn every time I'm in every one of these kind of settings.
Yeah. So back to even mentoring, What is it that you
So I got to interrupt you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just got to say one thing. If you want a formula for mediocrity, then hang out with people who do what you do. They're all on the same level. They're in the same industry. And I see it all the time. You know, the kids on the football team are hanging out with the kids on the football team. The road to mediocrity is just hanging out with the people that are all in your business, your industry, your team, kind of the same age doing what you're doing. If you can't mix up your flock and hang with different people that maybe you're even uncomfortable with, or you have no idea what they're even about, but they're completely differently thinking and differently acting than what you do, that's how you become, or you're on your road to becoming extraordinary. Because you need that. You need that stuff. Anybody who's made soup knows it's all the different kinds of mixture of stocks and different vegetables and different stuff you could put in there that gives you the great soup. Not just the obvious recipe. It's the same thing with yourself. Like, you got to go hang out with odd and interesting and different kinds of people that you have no interest in even, but understand their perspective and see how they see you. One of the most invaluable assets, and I've been that way since I'm a kid. It's just not something I've picked up recently. I've been that way literally since I'm literally 6, 7, 8 years old. Always hanging out with a very different kind of group of kids all the way through college and everything else. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that was well worth it.
It's such an important lesson that a LinkedIn hangout is like, yeah, I'm not going to hang out with, I've already hung out with the best and biggest names of athletes. Do I need to go do that more? How am I going to learn? I mean, I'm always learning stuff from all these athletes that I'm hanging with, but I could learn more from being in a room of 30 people that are in their 20s trying to figure it out.
Well said. Well put. My God, you made me lose my train of thought. But
sorry
I know,
all good.
I was, but it didn't matter because whatever's coming out of your mouth is going to be so much more valuable. It's trying to wrap up, I think, on the mentor side, because you're mentoring a lot of people, and it's your time, which is the most important commodity that we have. It's really the only way you can offend me is just to waste my time. So, do you look for the mentee to guide you in what they're looking to get out of the relationship? Or do you just say, hey, listen, this is what you got to do?
It varies. I mean, I have a very wide variety of people that I'm helping at this juncture. I mean, I've got head coaches. I've got people that have pretty significant roles in companies. I've got kids that are in high school. I've got kids that are in college. I've got, a lot of different variations. And I look at it like, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to help you. You want me to give you my cheesecake recipe? If that helps you, I'll give you my cheesecake recipe. You want me to explain to you how I make money at Steiner, or you want me to give you some ideas of what you could be doing differently than what you are doing? I'll do that. I'm a consultant. Really, when you coach, you got to be a consultant. I'm not a parent. I'm not here to hold your hand every day. I'm not here to check how much money is in your bank account. I'm here to serve you and help you get to the next level. Whatever that may be, if that's getting into a college, or that's trying to figure out how to get through high school and get the most out of high school, or pick the right college, or if just trying to get your next coaching job, change careers, whatever it is, I'm here to serve that and consult. And there's a big difference between, managing versus consulting, or parenting versus consulting. So the consulting part comes as opposed to me telling you what I think. It's you coming to me, asking me some questions about concerns you have in your life, and me trying to give you the best directions and answers based on your questions.
Tell me about Steiner. And I know what the company is, but how would you define Steiner?
It's simple. As crazy as it is, first of all, it's 30 years old. We've acquired over 25 million autographs. We've probably done well over 50,000 appearances. And that's basically our company. We procure athletes for all kinds of PR, marketing, advertisement, all kinds of different things, trade shows, advertisements, commercials. We do licensing and autograph products, which most people know us more for on SteinerSports.com. We have 33,000 SKUs of products that we've created using athlete autographs and their likenesses. And then we have these team partnerships like Yankee Steiner, Mets Steiner, or MSG Steiner, or Red Sox Steiner, where we partner up with the teams and we sell their game-used products that are used in the games, balls, bases, lineup cards, jerseys, those kinds of things, which are pretty popular these days. Those are the three main things that our company does. And one of the underlying things of all what I just said is, obviously, SteinerSports.com is a very active website that has an auction platform as well. So if you're into collecting, or you just need to buy a great sports gift, obviously SteinerSports.com is a great place to go do that. And our auction platform is amazing. If you have a company, you really need to grow, or come out with a new product, or you're trying to grow it, we're a company that you can consult with after 30 years in finding the right athlete. I think these days it's not as hard to find an athlete It's not that hard to find an athlete to work with. It's finding the right athlete that has the right stuff that can actually help your company from a brand standpoint or in some of the other aspects you may need for marketing and advertising.
I think you touched on a really important point in terms of making the match. How often do you have to turn away athletes that you don't feel comfortable putting your name behind to represent, or that you just don't think are going to be able to?
Never. I mean, I don't turn any athletes away because everybody has their strengths. And no matter how weird you think an athlete is, unless they're just an outright bad person and just have done really bad things, then there is nothing to talk about, which, by the way, just because somebody's a really good athlete doesn't make them a really good person. Just means they're a really good athlete. There's a lot of bad people that become really good athletes. There's still bad people that are really good athletes, just like there's a lot of bad people that become lawyers, and they're just bad people that are lawyers. I mean, it's pretty much every industry. That's why people are shocked. Can you believe how much money that person makes? Yeah, I believe it. That's what that industry pays. But it doesn't make them a good person. It doesn't make them a person that's marketable, and they're maybe missing the boat on a whole bunch of other opportunities if they would kind of lean over to the other side of it and try to become a good person. Some talents can change, but most can't. I mean, listen, success and fame really just broadens and broadcasts who you really are. So, you find somebody who's really highly successful, it just ends up broadcasting who they really are as a person. And we've seen celebrities, movie stars who are like just complete jerks. They were jerks before they became successful. The two things kind of work parallel.
Yeah.
I guess my point. And so, I don't turn away a lot of talent unless they've done something that's just incredibly wrong and they don't get it and they don't want to give it. But, most players I hang in with, even if they have done something wrong, because we're all better than our worst mistake. And sometimes players, because of who they are, they make one mistake and it's so magnified. And I'm a person who believes in forgiveness. I think that we can all give people a second chance. And a lot of times that second chance can be extremely, extremely helpful in community and service if the athlete really gives a hoot about what people think and they really give it a hoot about, what they can actually do to change other people's minds about what they did that was really stupid.
Yeah, I feel bad for a lot of athletes. I feel that some of them, because of spotlight, that a lot of them are introverts and they get
it's a lot of pressure. It's a
Yeah.
lot of pressure, just as it is for a lot of people that have some success at some point. If you've had some success, it doesn't only mean athletes, but anybody who's had some success with a company or a product, it's a lot of pressure. Success doesn't end all. It just begins a lot of responsibility and accountability for. And a lot of people have a hard time stepping up to the plate on all that. It's a lot to take in. And it's just why you need mentors and good people around you to kind of help you sort a lot of that out. And that's probably where more the mistake doesn't get made with a lot of the talent that I see. The mistakes are kind of common and obvious. It's the people they have around them that even make those mistakes and problems worse. Where sometimes I've had the ability to be around an athlete because I don't give a hoot. I will tell them, hey, you've lost your mind and it may be over there somewhere in that garbage pail. Maybe if you dig long enough, you could find it. But you should find it, whether it be here or somewhere quickly, because it's not getting any better from here. But once in a while, I get the opportunity to tell a player that. But, listen, there's only one of those players that exist. And most agents and people around those players are afraid of the give and get back. And if they tell them the truth and the athlete doesn't respond well to that, they lose the relationship. And they're not confident they can gain it back.
What about, in my opinion, I don't even know if this is my opinion, it's probably fact, that when you're at the top of the game, that's when you've got the most leverage. That's your best opportunity to be giving. So I used to own an executive recruiting firm, and a lot of executives, that portfolio managers at hedge funds that were making all this money, they were so caught up in themselves and they felt indestructible that they never, they just wished people away. And when that crisis hit back in 2007, 2008, amazing how their tune changed, but it was too late. They lost that, not only did they, when they had this leverage where they could have been providing the most value and giving the most, now they're in a position where they need it.
You got to differentiate net value and self-value. And I think people get confused about just because they have a lot of money, it doesn't give you a lot of self-value. And I think that it's nice to have a nice net value. It's nice to have a lot of money in the bank, but I think it's probably equally as nice, if not more nice and more important, to have self-value. And you should try to be building up both of those simultaneously. And self-value is getting into your communities and actually doing something, not just a check, but taking an interest and caring about what's going on with situations in your community, and even then some, depending on your level of wealth, the kind of impact you can have. I think what happened is a lot of people got focused so much on their net worth, and they forgot about their self-worth, and realized that when some of that money goes away, whatever, now what are you left with?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing.
So, for me, it's like, I love that in my communities, and I'm in New Rochelle here, and New Rochelle is important. Thursday I'm going to go speak to the high school kids, and I'm going to give up a morning of my time because there's been some problems over there. And I care about this community. It's where my business has been for 17 years. And if I have a business here, then I think you have a responsibility. Now, growing up in Brooklyn, you walk down the street, every one of your neighbors treated you like that you were their kid. There was no, like, now in this day and age, I know what would happen. Like, if you were acting out of line, whatever, a neighbor would grab you by the neck, give you some verbal beating and whatever else. I mean, everybody looked at every kid on the block as if it was theirs. And so, I know that there's some guidelines now. You can't do that. But what you can do is just care about your community. There should be an advantage. I feel like in my community, I'm the smallest guy in Scarsdale. I mean, there's so many successful people and great people in Scarsdale that have done amazing things in their trades. I just want, when I leave Scarsdale, I want the kids and the community to be better because I've been in that community. So I'm still bringing a player to the Little League, even though my kids haven't played Little League for 12 years. But I still bring a player because I can. And I know it makes the Little League better. I still go over to the high school and speak to the kids if they ask, because there should be an advantage if somebody reached a certain level like I have. I want there to be an advantage to the kids because, hey, Brandon Steiner lives in Scarsdale and I have an advantage. I can learn a little bit about sports marketing, or he comes to my school and talks, or he donates stuff to our charity stuff. That's the advantage of me being in Scarsdale. So I ask people, what's the value you bring to your community? What is it you do for your community? Not what your community can do. Everybody's worrying about the street light. They're worrying about the streets being paved, the community pool. But what value you bring into your community? What value, why is your community better? Because you're in it. And I tell you, so self-worth, net worth, I'm like, hey, start with your neighborhood, and not just what's good for your property or because you have a problem, but look at the community problems and weigh in. And by the way, I think there's a lot of people doing some great work, even in Scarsdale. I mean, as wealthy and as successful as some of these people are, it's a great community. Do I think a lot of people could do more? Well, yeah, I do. But I start with being the example. I want to do as much as I can. I try to set that example.
I probably shouldn't be using this guy's name because the times aren't right, but the quote's so powerful, and I think it speaks to what you're doing and just what most people should be doing. But Kevin Spacey had a quote. It says, if you're fortunate enough, are you familiar with the quote?
Yeah,
you're nodding your head.
Yeah.
If you're fortunate enough to make it to the penthouse, don't forget to send the elevator back down.
Yeah, I agree. And, it's unfortunate with Kevin. He's such a talented actor, and I know all the details. And we've seen a lot of problems right now with people maybe being a little abusive with some of their power and authority. And with power and authority comes a lot of responsibility, comes a lot of opportunity, comes a lot of accountability. And that's what people don't always realize, that it's not a free ride all of a sudden when you got some power and authority and some money. It actually, the volume of what you're now responsible for gets turned up in most cases. The goal is you try to balance it out and just remember who you are, where you came from, and try not to change, because it's the person who you were is what got you there. Mm-hmm. And that's the person you want to try to always, the core of that person you want to be.
Yeah. You're good with your quotes, whether it's the ones that are just free-flowing for you or...
It's just me. I mean, my kids kill me about it. They're like, Dad, you're a quote machine. I'm like, listen, it is who I am. Like, you don't like it, don't write it down. But meanwhile, when you're with your friends, I see you grabbing my quotes and you're stealing all my material. So, like, which side of your mouth are you talking to right now? Because it's unbelievable. But you're right. I tend to over-dramatize with the quotes, but I think it's just easy for people to digest. It's these little snackable little nuggets are easier for people to kind of get.
I agree. Yeah. And you've got so many, and if I had to boil down one, and I don't know if it's necessarily a direct quote, but it's just one that's kind of, again, getting back to the theme of things that you talk about that your business is based on a collection of memorabilia, but you're most proud of your collection of people.
Yeah. So I'm a collector of motivation in people and ideas. I've been a collector of all sorts, not just memorabilia but I think it's important to value that. I think sometimes people don't necessarily value things till it's too late, till they lose them. I think it's important to value. You value relationships, value the fact that you met somebody, value that you're sitting in class next to someone, value that. And if you put value on it, then you'll see some of the value that goes along with that. I mean, it's amazing how many times I'm sitting I go speak at a class in college, and I'm like, I'll ask, what's winning for you? And they go, well, I want to be this money manager. I'm like, let me ask you something. Do you know what this person next to you, you know what his name is? No. Do you know what his father does? No. I said, let's just see. You're 3 inches from the kid. Joe, like, what's your father do? Oh, he's in banking. Oh, he's a CEO of a bank. He's 3 inches from you. Like, value the fact that two of you are sitting here and believe that there's some divine intervention to ultimately what you dream of, what winning is. And here's a kid sitting next to you whose dad is a prominent banker. That would make sense for you probably to meet while you guys, I mean, who's not going to want to meet my son's friend? I mean, if my son came and said, Dad, I need you to meet a friend of mine, like, I'm going to say no. And this is what I'm trying to, this is one of the messages in my new book, but also I'm trying to convey to kids and people of all sorts, like, get to know the people that are right there in front of you, that are at the desk next to yours, that are living next door or above you, instead of just complaining because the noise, maybe they're making a little noise one morning with their shoes. See who they are, see what they do. Ask those questions.
I agree so much. I tell people all the time, never to judge people, because more often than not, it's the guy that's in the suit that's working for the guy that's in jeans.
Yeah, especially these days. It's impossible to tell who's what and what's who on that basis.
Yeah. There's a template that I created. It's similar to like a database, but I call it the sphere of influence. And again, to your point, what the sphere of influence is it's a template that helps people break down the relationships, because a lot of times you don't realize who is in your circle already or who is in your sphere. Like you said, like person that's sitting next to you at class. I mean, I'm talking about even the person at the deli that you go to get your coffee every day, who, think about, who
that's the first book, The Business Playbook. The guy you spend money with is seeing 300 other people the same day.
Exactly.
And you never know who he's waiting getting coffee for. It could be the person you're trying to interview with tomorrow.
100%. It's exactly. So again, treat people, treat everybody well, see what you can do, pay it forward, and don't ask.
Yeah.
So if you were me right now sitting in this seat, what questions would you be asking you, or me, I should say?
I think you covered, the core of a big part of who I am. And I think there's always a question of like, what's next? For me, 58, we've had some, that there's the reset button that's, I think a lot of people in their 50s are facing right now. We could always talk about, there's a million things we could talk about, but I think the very common question I get asked is like, what's next? And what keeps you motivated? What keeps you driving? And it's a big problem right now, because if you're in your 50s, back when I was a kid, you were going to die around 63 and expire. So if you're in your 50s, you really think about chilling and, maybe just kind of getting some travel in there before you moved on.
It's not in your DNA to chill.
Well, the problem is now is that, the average age is 81 to 83. So I've got another 25 years left. That's the way I look at it. I'm getting into a third period of a hockey game right now. If my life was a hockey game. So I understand that I'm not living forever, but I'm not all of a sudden now I'm not getting into the 2-minute warning. And there's a big difference. And I think that there's a lot of people struggling that really haven't planned it out, that are in their 50s that need to hit the reset button. And it's not about retiring. It's about refiring. It's about taking your hand off the control, alternate, and delete. As you get into your 50s, it's not about just jumping into a new career necessarily, but it's about reinventing yourself within the career you're in now and thinking about it differently and getting out and start talking to some people that are just doing different things. A lot of people want to, once you're in your 50s, you're at a certain level and they don't want to start from the beginning. So the key thing is, how do you start from the beginning simultaneously so you don't have to just jump jobs and start at $30,000 a year when you're used to making $250, let's say. And I think that's, for me, that's been my mantra. Is I think I have a good vision. I always like to think ahead. So I've been working for 4 or 5 years diligently on my books, on my platform, my blogs, building a platform so I can go maybe around this country and speak. And I've got probably 2 or 3 other book ideas even right now that I'm thinking about, along with the book I'm writing. I'm constantly thinking about what's next, what else, so that I'm not all of a sudden, I want to get to a point in time where I don't have choices. If I don't want to do that, I can go home, pack it up, chill out, watch games, and just golf or hang out and go on vacation with my wife. I have that ability. I've done well. But that's not what I want. I'm going to work till probably the day I die, because I love working. I love serving. I love helping people. I love creating. But I think for people out there, when they're thinking about their what's next is, for a lot of you, it isn't really just going to some island and chilling out. That's not euphoria. Well, a lot of people get very confused about that. But the euphoria is having choices and not being forced to have to retire or forced to have to do something you don't want to do. That's what you don't want to do as you get older. And in order to avoid that, you got to stay current. You got to keep up with things that sometimes are very uncomfortable keeping up with, and plan your next thing simultaneously. When you were 20, you were going to school, you're working on a bar on a Friday night, and you had a day job. I mean, you do whatever it took to get whatever it is you want to get going. Now, because you're 50, if you want to take the same mindset, oh, well, you don't want to work on the weekend. Oh, you don't want to work at night. Oh, you don't want to, well, where are you going? You want to know why you're not going anywhere? Because you're not doing anything. So, but if you're willing to kind of, you know, every Sunday I watch 3-4 hours of YouTube for years now. So I've watched hundreds of hours of YouTube. I'm not just a good speaker by accident. You know, I've watched hundreds of speeches and I've studied speaking. I've gotten coaching. I'm not just expecting to go because I know a lot about sports and sports marketing to be a great speaker one day. I've done the work. I'm 4 or 5 years into learning how to become a better speaker and what it takes to be a speaker that's influential out there, that I can get paid to make money speaking. In my case, you know, the money for my speaking, most of it goes to charity. But whatever I choose to do, I don't think you want to go slide from doing something really well to something you're not doing well and don't really know a lot about. But it takes a bunch of years. So if you're 50, it may take 5-6 years for you to be really good at something else again. That's what it took the first time, that what you're good at, right? Yeah. So I think people misunderstand. They just think because you're good at one thing, you can slide into another, and then they get disappointed when they can't.
Who are some of the better speakers that you've learned from or that have impressed you?
Well, I love Ken Blanchard. I mean, you can't get enough of him. I love Wingett. You know, Larry Wingett, he's crazy and has an interesting perspective, but he goes out and gets it. You know, Sam Richter's an amazing speaker. Dave Horsager, Ken Dichek, amazing.
To you, what makes them amazing to you?
I think the most powerful thing as a speaker is when you walk out of there going, you know, I never thought about it that way. Besides the fact that you learn something, which is every speaker, you should learn something. But more importantly, if I can get you to think differently about your situation, about how you view the world or view life, I've won as a speaker. There's only so much you can remember when a speaker speaks. I don't know how much people are going to remember in this conversation I'm having with you, but I guarantee when you walk away, if you've listened to this pod, you say, you know, that guy thinks about things differently. I never thought about it that way. That's my goal as a speaker. And I think all those speakers came up with different ideas and theories and thoughts that I never thought about it that way.
What advice would you have for me? You know, my goal is to change the mindset of the people that I speak with that listen to my message about more of the giver's gain, just all about, like you said, like, you know, giving.
I mean, you set the example. Obviously, you know, you want to talk with as many people that give to give. And also, you know, to get better at it, find the people that are doing this and are the best at it. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, I've stolen so many ideas from Oprah. Oprah's been a tremendous mentor of mine. I never met her, and nor I may never, but I've watched her show for 25 years, watched her channel, read her magazine. I think she's a master marketer. I think she's a master giver and a master game changer with getting people to think about it differently. And I've learned a lot from the way she presents it. But it's not only about coming up with the idea that changes everything, but it's about how you present that idea so that people can receive it. She's a master of figuring out how to get people a message in a way that they can receive it. So it's not important to only come up with the idea, but how are people going to receive it? She's a master. Whenever I get into anything, I want to go to the best and find out how they did it, why they did it, and then I can move backwards. So, you know, getting with a Harvey McKay, getting with a Ken Blanchard, getting with a John Gray. I mean, these are not people that I only met. These are people that stayed at my house, that I've spent days with. Like, that's the hard part. Can you find value enough to go that it's worth it for those people to come meet with you and then share their ideas and how they got to where they are? So it's not just a simplistic conversation, but you can really get to the heart of it. Like with John Gray, it took almost 24 hours to get there, but I got it. You know, it was important because that's a guy who filled Radio City on a regular basis, those kinds of venues, when people were talking about how to build and fix their relationships with their spouses. It was a very important topic 20 years ago. And he's one of the most renowned speakers on relationships, marriages, sex. Yeah, a day with him is invaluable. I mean, that's like going up to the white pearly gates almost. You know, because you think about how important your marriage and relationships are, and this guy has some secrets to that sauce. So whatever it is you're doing, figure out who's doing what you're doing, the absolute best, and study them. I mean, and study them and study them. And at some point when you're ready, you'll figure out a way to meet them. And they'll give you the secrets to their sauce. And then you'll find yourself not working so hard to try to figure it out. You're just working hard just to do it.
That's powerful. You have 1 million people in your Rolodex, very impressive people. Is there anyone in particular that you're most impressed with, and what is it about them that you're most impressed with?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, that I've been grateful enough to meet and learn from. It's just amazing, from Randy Levine, who is the president of the Yankees, or Brian Cashman, general manager, Frank Bisignato, a CEO of First Data, Joe Pomara used to be a CEO and chairman of Citi. These are just a few off the top of my head that I couldn't even fit into their suitcase. Their wisdom, the knowledge, their people skills, their leadership skills are amazing. And, you learn from them in the relationships you have, and you learn. And it's amazing, like, what they've accomplished. Sometimes people take people like that for granted, but behind the scenes, as my son always said, Dad, I'm a person too, And all those people are people too. And when you get past the wall and you realize how they operate and how they're able to motivate and lead, that's the stuff you can grab, and it's priceless. You can't pick up a book. You just, when you go into Brian Cashman's war room, it's like, look at Brian, he did this, he did that. I'm like, when you go into his war room, you see the level of intensity and his level of focus and preparation. That's what leads you to go get all these young kids in the right spots at the right time, and then do all the things he's able to do and keep the Yankees on a top level. It's not an accident and luck. It's a serious strategy, and if you can get past the wall and get to hang with a guy like Brian and see him operating, then you realize. So, like, for me, I'm always trying to get behind the wall and, to get to interesting people like this. And I've been blessed to find a lot of these people. Obviously, I'm owned by Omnicom, which is a $30 billion company, very big company. So, a guy like John Rand, who's the CEO, is a master orchestrator of putting some of the best brands together underneath one roof, which he's done at Omnicom extremely well for a long time, to say the least, and has served a lot of good, in finding a lot of good practices when you get that together to serve companies with great marketing and advertising practices. So people along the ways like that, a Randy Weissenberger, who was the CFO, was kind of a rabbi for me, brilliant guy as well. So it's been a great run. I mean, so many different, you meet a Derek Jeter, a Mariano Rivera. I mean, not meet, but you work with for 20 on years. Like, you learn about the secrets to their sauce, about there's no such thing as a big game, and consistency over time, which is really what it takes to be extraordinary and great, is being consistent for a long period of time and not wavering and not moving away from what it is you believe in and what it is you do. Those are all the key ingredients that I've been following. So when I get to some of these key people, I don't take it for granted, but I do dig in because I want to know. I want to know how they got there. And it sometimes takes a little while, and that's what I look at myself as a collector of all those kinds of people. And there's been so many. I've been very grateful, and it's probably the best blessing I've ever had, which is, started with my mom, who was amazing. The stuff that she's taught me, she was way, way ahead of her years, and to all these different people I've now been able to figure out how to get into.
Wow. What would you say, last question, because I've occupied your whole afternoon here. What are all these people that have been wildly successful, and success, what I define, and I think you'd probably agree, I define success as living a life by design, not by default. What have they given up to get to where they are? What have they had to sacrifice?
Well, there's a great book, and Jess, if you remember the name of this book, Brendan Bouchard. I haven't mentioned Brendan Bouchard. He's a brilliant guy, and I just went out for dinner with him a few weeks ago, and I mean, that's a guy who's a mega guy, and kind of stayed with him, and eventually we went to go see Bruce Springsteen and went to dinner together. And I wanted to learn a little bit about him because I thought he was really special.
Young kid, too.
And he wrote a book about extraordinary people. And I think that's really the question you mean to ask, is like, what are the ingredients what does it take to be extraordinary? What are the gives and gets in being extraordinary? And I think that there's some very strong common denominators in being extraordinary. I don't think it's that confusing. A lot of it is energy, where you have to, you are going to lose some things because you are going to go into a place that could be kind of dark. When you talk to most people who have done something extraordinary, like, I've built a pretty good industry in this sports thing. I'm not responsible for the sports industry. By the way, Brendan Bouchard, High Performance Habits is the name of the book. Great book. But I think energy, you have to be willing to get into a dark place. And you may be there for a little while. Like, I'm not embarrassed to talk about, I've been in some almost on a level of high level of depression. I'm in such a dark place and trying to figure something out. Or you have to have the ability to go create so much insanity, chaos around you and not let it scare you. For some people, my wife, I don't know how you're dealing with all this. I'm like, I don't know how I would be okay if I didn't have all this. So, high extraordinary people need high level of chaos. They need to be able to get into a dark place to go try to figure that out, because that's what we do. We figure it out when we have all this chaos and insanity around us and we're multitasking, we got a million moving parts. We need to organize it and put it in some kind of order, which is what we do. It may take a little bit of time, and sometimes it could be very, very all-encompassing. It could be extremely draining. And that's the nights when sometimes I'm at dinner and I don't remember even being at dinner, or I'm asking my kid a question and they were just talking about that for 30 minutes prior. That's the little bit of the loss, and you got to be careful, because you know that to do something extraordinary, to be exceptional, you will lose yourself at some point in time to what it is you're trying to accomplish. And you got to be careful and straddle that line for not too long a period of time, because you come home one night, your closet's empty, and your kids hate you, and you become this weirdo, which is kind of like what I feel a little bit about like jobs a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you got to be, there's a fine line to the genius of it all versus, trying to make sure that you keep everything somewhat intact and remember what's important. That's the battle.
Yeah. Speaking of jobs, it's so ironic. I don't know. Do you know what he's most proud of in his book? What he talked about being most proud of all the things. It wasn't the iPhone. It wasn't even his kids. Wait, did he? I don't even know if he had kids. So he was most proud of the people that he surrounded himself with.
Yeah. He was a brilliant, talent acquisition is huge, and he was just so focused on making sure he was not afraid to whack people left and right if he can go upgrade.
Yeah.
And some of the great ones have been able to do that. We hear that a lot with great leaders. It says, get rid of the bottom three and find, keep increasing your best.
GE, Goldman Sachs, same thing. And like to your point, which there's a great saying, it's long to hire, quick to fire.
Yeah.
You just got to do it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope this was I hope this was good, and I hope listening, join me on my blog or on Facebook, like me. I answer everything, by the way. So people Facebook or message me on LinkedIn, I do answer them all. So please reach out. And if you like the blog or you like this conversation, I like to hear the feedback and what you agree with or disagree with.
How does somebody do that? Give us your information.
If you really go to Brandon Steiner on Facebook and just like me, that's the best place to get me, or Brandon Steiner on LinkedIn. Those are the two places I'm actively responding, although I'm on Instagram and Twitter all the time. And I'm always trying to respond as much as I can, but a more in-depth conversation. I do it with some help. I do it, while I'm watching TV. I do it while I'm driving or I'm on an airplane. I mean, why sit on an airplane and sit there like a mummy for 3 hours? You're in an airport and do nothing. I can't believe many people do that. Like, come prepared. I bring my office to the airport. I bring my office onto the airplane. I can get 4 hours of amazing work done and, reaching out to people that never thought I'd reach out to them. And I use that time wisely.
How do you stay in touch with? Again, you've collected this collection of people. How do you, do you have a method?
Yeah, I think the blog is a big part of it, obviously, especially we have so many customers and so many people responsible for helping me get to this point. So I'm constantly doing that. When I do go on long trips and everything, I go through my calendar. I go to see where I've been over the last year or two and tell, I haven't heard from that person. I try to make it a certain mission every day to reach out to a couple people, send out a couple gifts almost every day that people aren't expecting. I do 2 acts of kindness every day. I go through my sent and deleted all the time to see who maybe I've deleted that maybe I haven't heard from, or who I've sent and I didn't hear back from. I go through my calendar, and I go through my contacts. It's a lot of names, and I just start with A. And I just, quick hello, quick text, and it takes time. But, if you give a hoot, and you want to keep in touch with all these people that you've collected over the years, you got to spend a little time. I think the blog helps me a lot because people feel I'm in contact with them and they feel like I'm talking to them. So the blog is, hey, here's where my head's at these days. So people kind of feel like they're in touch with me a little bit, even though they're not always in touch with me.
But they are. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thank you, my friend.
So
Good
much.
To see you. Glad you came up. Hope you enjoyed the office, and we'll have to do it again one day. We'll do a follow-up.
Oh, I'm going to hold you to that. Be careful. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. If so, check out some of my others on conversationswithconnors.com. If you're someone looking to build a business, increase your sales, or make a career change, go to networkwise.com. There, you'll have access to a bunch of resources that can help you get started. Thanks again, make it a great day, and remember to always network wise.